Another goal for the next few weeks is protecting our frontline healthcare workers who are at risk of being attacked by their patients. A bill introduced by Congressman Joe Courtney is getting bipartisan support about this. I asked him about it earlier. Congressman Courtney, welcome back to Face the Facts.
Great to be here, Mike. Thank you.
So what kind of violence are healthcare workers dealing with at work, and how can something like legislation help?
So the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is basically the best source of data, shows that 70% of workplace violent incidents occur in the healthcare or social service worker setting. That is 5 times greater than any other sector in the U.S. economy. And again, it's happening in ambulances to EMTs. It's happening in emergency rooms. It's happening in facilities that deal with people with behavioral health problems. It's and the range of violence is good old is assaults, kicking, hitting, spitting. There's sometimes healthcare workers are attacked with weapons. There was a shooting up in Buffalo, Minnesota in February where sadly a healthcare worker lost her life and 3 others were critically wounded. Again, it is an epidemic that has been building for years. And this bill, which passed with 255 votes in the House on Friday, would require larger healthcare centers to set up workplace violence prevention programs, training, better lighting, better communication systems, identifying patients that are high risk. And we know these are tried and true methods because it's done sort of on an ad hoc basis across the country. But the bill would make it now an enforceable workplace standard administered through OSHA and has the support of 33 different professional associations that represent healthcare workers, from emergency room docs, American Nurses Association, a lot of the unions that represent healthcare workers of every stripe. And it's time. I mean, these are the people that we counted on during the pandemic to sacrifice their health and sometimes their lives to treat patients. And we know they deserve to have a workplace which is safe, and that's what this bill would guarantee.
So this one is called HR 1195. This is the second time you introduced it, right? Washington seems to be hyper-focused these days on infrastructure and immigration issues, and now race relations as well. What are the chances this actually gets through to the Senate?
So one of the encouraging things was the vote this year, which, again, as you point out, this bill was brought up 2 years ago. We actually got a larger majority. More Republicans joined Democrats on the bill. And I frankly think that's because of sort of the awareness and the shared experience of the pandemic, where people, really, I think, have a new realization about the value that healthcare workers bring to all of us and all of our families. So it was about 62% of the vote, which is a higher number than the 60% threshold in the Senate. We do definitely have senators in the Republican side who are interested this time in terms of advancing the bill, again, because of really just the amazing passionate advocacy of nurses, EMTs, docs all across the country. It's true that, right now the White House is very focused on an infrastructure bill, which I support, but I think that, there's still time in the system to be able to accommodate, the heroes that we all thanked and lauded over the last year and did tweets and press releases. Now it's time to actually deliver for them real thanks in terms of creating a safer workplace.
And we know these heroes come in all sections of the healthcare industry. Would something like this include home healthcare aides and visiting nurses? I mean, they're on the front lines as well, sometimes in the homes of the people they're caring for.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes, because you're absolutely right. The hearings that we had on this bill a couple of years ago, we actually did have testimony from folks who are home health aides who go into people's homes, which again, in some respects, is almost the least sort of structured and controllable environment. And again, this gives them, better training to identify risk situations and the ability to communicate if they need help. So you're absolutely right. That critical part of our healthcare system would be protected by this bill.
So if this takes the next step and OSHA gets involved and creates a set of standards, will that also create a framework for legal ramifications? For example, say an attack happens, does a nurse or a doctor sue for damages, or can a patient actually face charges?
So the OSHA system is set up to do investigations and to make sure that workplaces are in compliance, and a whole other range of issues that have been, well-settled law for the last 50 years. OSHA does not create a private cause of action. It does not create an avenue to file lawsuits. Again, it is strictly a workplace regulatory system, which again has, over the 50 years it's been on the books, has literally saved millions of lives. So, this is about prevention. This is not about creating, systems for lawsuits. Sometimes there are arrests that are made, like the, situation that I described up in Minnesota and other, similar situations. But that always happens after the fact. And what the nurses are calling for, what the doctors are calling for, what the EMTs are calling for, is they want to have prevention. They want to have systems where they're better protected and better trained to deal with high-risk situations. And again, the grassroots support for this is extraordinary. And I would say to folks who are skeptical about the Senate, don't underestimate that support, because I think it's very powerful. And as I said, particularly after the pandemic, I think people really, they recognize we need our healthcare workforce, and we should protect them.
Congressman Joe Courtney, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us on Face the Facts. Good luck with the bill, and I hope you stay healthy.
Great. Thanks, Mike.